In yesterday's video, we explored the western side of Kiddie Kingdom. There we found the Funhouse, where we were taunted by some guy in a top hat. He's been taunting us this entire time as a disembodied voice over the park's PA system. We almost tracked him down in the Funhouse, but he escaped. Now, we need to head east towards the main gate to King Cola's castle to find him. Out of the Funhouse, we can stop by the map of the park where we spent so much time in yesterday's video. From here, we move east. Directly east of us is the door to a delicatessen. The ground floor is empty. As we head up the stairs, we can remember to take more Radaway and more Rad-X. This park is draining our supplies. On the second floor, we find an ammo box under a table, and we see holes in the walls overlooking the park. The southern hole overlooks the path we're about to take. We have to go south before we can bend east towards the gate to King Cola's castle. And heading east through the hole in the wall, we appear on a roof overlooking a little car ride. Nearby we find a tool chest and a tool case, and the southern part of this roof has a balcony, again overlooking the path we're about to take. But otherwise, this is a dead end, so turning around, we can go back downstairs, out the delicatessen, and south, past a rad sprayer, down some stairs. This brings us to a large open area with two rides, but we get attacked by ghouls hiding in garbage. Off in the distance, we see a ghoul on the other side of a fence. And another one by the cars. Here we find that car ride we saw from the roof of the delicatessen. The disembodied voice doesn't think we should spend much time here.
Don't you think you're a little big for that ride? Around the middle, mostly. Though we do occasionally make exceptions for simpletons like yourself.
Another zinger about our appearance. What, this guy thinks we're ugly and fat? This guy better be as gorgeous as Narcissus, otherwise he's a hypocrite. The button for this ride doesn't work either. We gotta head to the power plant first. Heading south of here, however, we find a ride that is powered. Must be running on some sort of reserve power. This is the Nuka Blast-Off ride. We find a ghoul hiding behind a wall. And we see some bathroom scale traps lying in the middle of the ride. I'm not sure what they're connected to, but after trying to carefully disarm each one, we get hit by the ride.
Well, I can see you're no rocket scientist.
Aha, this guy is such a joker. I managed to disarm the final scale when I got spotted. Oh, whoops. Aren't I just a genius? Blitzing in the middle of this ride. I should have just let the ride take care of that ghoul. Anyway, reloading a previous save, we can go through and disarm the traps, and it's then that we realize that these are indeed traps, only the ride itself is the hammer. When done, we can exit this ride to the south. Here we find a ghoul hanging out in some sort of tunnel. Whoa, someone trod on a mine, and we see him looking south. Looks like this alleyway was lined with mines, trapping this ghoul. Well, it's clear that if we head east, we continue along our path to King Cola's castle. But this alleyway is really alluring. What could be down here? We'll head south down the alley first. We pass a door to the left, and turning west, we see that inaccessible gate by the southern entrance. The very first thing we saw upon entering the park in episode 1. Well, at least now we know what's beyond this gate. We find a door to the employee tunnels. On the other side of the door, we find ourselves at the top of a steep staircase. Heading all the way down, we arrive in some sort of utility tunnel. We see a ghoul wandering around. This tunnel must have been used by the Nuka World employees to quickly move from one section of the park to the other, and to transport goods. We see a forklift down here. The southern side is blocked off, but the tunnel continues down to the north. Here we find a flooded section. We pick up a hefty dose of rad swimming in this water, but we don't find anything on the bottom. At the end of the northern tunnel, we emerge into some sort of loading bay or warehouse. Bottles and boxes are stacked everywhere. We see two paths forward. Peeking into the southern door, we see that it's a staircase leading up. Well, this likely leads out. I don't want to go that way yet. We'll remember this and come back to check it out later. Nearby, however, we find a few containers to loot, including a chem cooler with some medics inside. And then checking out the door to the northwest, we see a bunch of tables and shelves inside. Looks like some sort of storage room. To finish exploring this room first, we see a few skeletons lying on the ground and produce in planters on tables. The produce is still growing out of these planters, which means someone has maintained them. Possibly the owner of our disembodied voice. We see some blocks on the ground nearby. They don't spell anything. And some empty lockers to the north. With that, we can move west to explore this next storage room. Inside, we find more planters. There's a wooden crate hiding in the eastern corner. We find some Buff Out and Red X inside. And it looks like the ceiling is about to cave in. The concrete has cracked, and muddy earth has spilled into this room. The planters have gourds and corn inside. Again, still growing. Someone's been working on this. This room opens up to another room to the north, which is mostly empty, save for one tool case. So to continue, we pass through a door to the east, which leads us to another tunnel. Or perhaps it's the same tunnel, just part of it that isn't caved in. Heading west and then looking north, we see a larger room off that way. But let's go west first. Sure enough, the tunnel goes down, but this side is completely filled in with rubble. We can leap upon this flatbed by standing on some rubble and doing a running leap, but we don't find anything up here. So heading north, we find an expert-locked trunk on a forklift here, where we can get some armor, caps, and ammunition. And we see a bunch of beds. 2 large bunk beds. There's a footlocker at the base of each one. Near to these beds is an ammo box next to a refugee terminal on a crate. User D. Morris signed in. We find one section, user logs. We learn that D. Morris was Dean Morris. The first one is called It Actually Happened. The enemy finally dropped the bombs on us. Thank God we had the plan, and everyone stuck to it. We couldn't talk sense into all of those park visitors, but we were able to grab a few out of the stampede and take refuge in the employee tunnels. Oswald and Rachel did a pretty good job stocking up down here. We've got preserved food and seeds, water from the pump systems, tools, extra lumber, just about everything really, except for weapons. That was Mitchell's job, and we don't know if he survived. We just gotta keep calm about this and ride it out. Sounds like the nuclear apocalypse was such an anticipated event that most places had a plan for it, including Nuka World. Looks like the people in charge of Kiddie Kingdom were Oswald and Rachel. This is the second time we've heard about Rachel. She was mentioned in the terminal in the Funhouse as someone who was looking for a cure to ghoulism. In the next one, that crazy jerk. It's been about a week since the bombs fell and we'd all written Mitchell off for dead. Then he comes rolling up in a semi, half full of guns, explosives, food, medicine, chemicals, you name it. Said he'd been busy gathering the rest of what we'd need to fortify Kiddie Kingdom. He had some blood on his shirt, but when Oswald started to ask him about it, we all told him to just leave it alone. I mean, Mitchell's crazy, but right now I'd rather have him on our side. I certainly wouldn't want to go up against him. We blew up the service tunnel passages connecting to the other areas of the park. If things don't calm down in another few weeks, we'll head outside and barricade the gates. So the tunnels did go throughout the whole park, but these guys blew them up, which is why we found them caved in. In the next one, radiation storms. The fighting outside has died out a bit, and we've barricaded the gates to Kiddie Kingdom. While we were finishing up, a weird storm started to blow in over the horizon to the east. We barely had time to finish up, and when it hit hard. I've seen all sorts of storms, but this one was different, almost like a tornado with green lightning arcing through the sky. We all ended up taking shelter where we could, but a few people got sucked into the vortex and were just gone. We were trapped for hours while that crazy storm passed over. It must have picked up the fallout from Boston, because everyone has been sick for weeks now, and quite a few have died. Those of us who haven't are changing. The preparedness videos never said anything about this. This must have been the storm that Herman Benson wrote about in his terminal, which we read yesterday in the funhouse. So the park employees were exposed to a rad storm, and it is this storm, jam-packed with the nuclear fallout from the bombs that hit Boston, that turned them all into ghouls. The last one, some sort of affliction. We've been alive here for over 100 years now. The change has affected all of us. It seems as though our bodies have adapted to the radiation. Our features have become twisted and distorted, but we no longer felt ill. Unfortunately, it seems like this change has affected some of us worse than the others. First it was Mitchell, now Herman. They aren't speaking anymore, and they seem to just shuffle around growling. If we try to hold them back, they start to get violent. We've tried everything we can think of. Talking to them, medication, every possible remedy for a cold or illness, but whatever this affliction is, we can't seem to beat it. Rachel's convinced that it has to be an illness of some sort. The rest of us just call it the affliction. I pray we find a solution before it takes us all. So Mitchell and Herman were the first to turn feral. We saw Herman turning feral in real time in his terminal entries in yesterday's video. We see a few ways out of here. There's a ramp leading up to a big opening to the west. We see a room to the north, but it's blocked. And then we see a big hole in the wall to the east. Heading up the ramp, we find a footlocker, and we see that this is a tunnel. I bet that's the way out. We'll tackle that last. Heading down, we pass a cooking stove. We see the opening to the north completely blocked in. Can't go that way. So instead, we'll go east. This leads us to a rec room. We see a few lockers to the southwest, some tables laid out with coolers. And as we explore some more lockers to the northwest, we hear the familiar taunting voice, but he's not talking to us.
What are you doing out of costume again? You know Nuka fires people for breaking character. Yes, of course, I'm kidding. But seriously, the clown makeup helps scare the invaders off. And there's a new one in the park. No, I don't think that's going to work this time. There's something different about this one. See? I can do that too. Now, stop squirming. Sorry. I know you can't help it. We just have to hold out till she gets back with a cure. Then we'll drive the raiders out and get the farm back in order. We'll fix this. I promise. There. Back in character. I need to prepare some more surprises for our visitor. So I'll leave you to find your way out.
Whoa! Did he just vanish? Was that Institute tech or magic? Real magic. And at last we finally learn his name. Oswald. The very same Oswald we read about in the previous terminal. Well, from this window, we see two paths forward, a staircase to the east leading up. Looks like yet another path out. Or we can turn west to continue down. We find another window into that room. Looks like the feral's just standing there. Sadly, we can't blitz inside the room. On this platform, we see a bunch of junk and one of those big sprayers. This platform overlooks a flooded level to the north. Moving quickly past the sprayers, we can go down some steps. We see some catwalks, but they are broken, so we will have to get our toes a little wet. Heading quickly down the steps, we can leap upon the opposite platform. Moving north, we climb some steps to another catwalk, but this path is broken. We could leap down to the water to climb up that staircase, but instead we're just gonna jump over this gap. On the final catwalk, we can crouch down, move south towards the door. strange to have seen Oswald talking with this feral. Oswald may have become a ghoul himself, but surely after 200 years he would know that feral ghouls can't reason or respond to him. Why is he wasting his breath? After looting a small amount of scrap and supplies in this room, we face northwest to find a key to the Kiddie Kingdom tunnels lying on a console and a terminal in the console. Pump control system. User F. Fowler signed in. Kiddie Kingdom Mist Sprayer Control System. System warning. Unsafe levels of radiation. From here we can turn off the mist sprayers. Oh, thank goodness. That should make things much easier. The next section is user logs. We learned that F. Fowler was Fran Fowler. Maybe it was her ghoul, whom Oswald was talking to in this room. The first note is called The First Attack. It's been a few weeks since the bombs fell, and we've been attacked for the first time. It wasn't even a big group, and they weren't as well armed as we were. During the fight, I froze up when some grocery clerk charged Evan from behind. He was knocked to the ground and was about to have his head bashed in with one of those gumdrop decorations when Mitchell blew the clerk's brains out. Now Evan is pissed at me for not watching his back. The world has ended, and I've got to deal with a pissed-off boyfriend. In the next one, why is this happening? It's been a few months since the radiation storm started. 23 people have died so far, and I'm starting to wish I was one of them. My skin looks like a prune, at least in the places where it hasn't fallen off. A couple of the others seem to have stopped changing, but they look terrible. Half of my hair has fallen out. Another clump just fell out while I was typing this. Evan's hair is gone entirely, and I can barely stand to look at him. We had a huge fight about it, and now he's moving his stuff out of here and into the clock tower. I felt like a monster chasing him off, but maybe it's true. Maybe I am a monster. Maybe we all are. In the next one, contamination in the water. Some sort of alarm woke us up in the middle of the night. It looks like the water intake pipes are contaminated. I mean, the water is practically glowing. The alarm must have been some sort of automated failsafe to protect the park. We'd all heard rumors about Nuka World having some sort of reactor in the bottling plant. God only knows what they put in that quantum stuff. The heck with it. It's been over a year now. If the radiation from the storms hasn't killed me yet, what's a little bit more? I'm going back to bed. So the water here got contaminated by toxic nuclear waste from the world of refreshment, where we know that the Project Cobalt experiments were going on. In the next one, found a use for the sprayers. We were attacked by a huge mob today. They almost made it to the castle this time. As we were trying to drive them back, I had an idea. We may be immune to radiation now, but these people probably aren't. I ran to the tunnels and turned on the park's water sprayers. In minutes, the attack was over. Man, we should have been doing this for years. When Evan heard it was me who figured it out, he kissed me until I couldn't see straight. I don't know if it means things are totally good between us again, but heck, I'll take it. And in the final one, the affliction is getting worse. The affliction sweeping through our people is getting worse. It took Herman last month. He knew it was coming. We all did. Until Rachel can figure out some way of fixing this, I'm afraid we're all going to end up like that. We've survived radiation storms, starvation, attacks, and God knows what else for over 100 years now. But how can we fight this? It's not fair. I don't know if I'm just angry, or if this is a sign that I've got the affliction. God help us all. So if the affliction took Herman last month, but she wrote this 100 years after the bombs dropped, then that means most of them survived here without turning feral for over 100 years. It was that final 100 years that turned most of them feral. All of them, apparently, except for Oswald. Heading out of Fran's room, we see across the way 2 pipes on the bottom flooded level. Jumping down to explore them, we can't interact with them. They don't appear to go anywhere. However, the leftmost pipe is a secret tunnel leading to the Beveragier lab. On the other side of the pipe, we find a small alcove with a terminal. This terminal can unlock this pipe, allowing us to open the hatch, but it can only be accessed from the other side, which we can only get to after going through the secure Beveragier lab, which is found in the world of refreshment. I covered Project Cobalt in a video dedicated to the topic, which you can watch here. Well, this room is a dead end, so now we need to pick one of the many staircases out to leave. Well, we'll explore them all just to know where they go. Instead of taking this staircase east, because I think this is the one we're supposed to take, let's retrace our steps and explore the ones we passed. Heading back into the room with the first terminal and the beds, we can go up the ramp into the next room and down this tunnel. Along the way, we find a first aid kit embedded in garbage, and at the very end, we climb up some stairs to end at a door. This door is locked, but we can open it with the Kiddie Kingdom Tunnels key that we got in Fran's room. We emerge in a small field right next to the Nuka Racer's track. This door is on the western side of the park, just southwest of the loading point for the Nuka Racers. Well, this is not where we want to go if we're trying to get to King Cola's castle, but first we need to kill a few ghouls. Oh, great. Looks like he turned back on the rad sprayers. Well, heading back to the door, we can go back to the tunnels. We'll retrace our steps back to the beginning of the tunnels because we passed another staircase. Heading south up the staircase, we can use the Kiddie Kingdom Tunnels key to unlock the next door. This brings us out to a hidden employees only section in the very middle of the park, right next to that Nuka blast-off ride that killed me while I was trying to disarm the scales. I completely missed this. But still, this is not where we're trying to go. So heading back inside, we can retrace our steps all the way back towards Fran's room, and this time turn east to go up this last set of stairs. This puts us out into some sort of tunnel. We see those Nuka racer cars whizzing by, and the radiation in this tunnel is horrible. Also, by this time it's gotten dark. We see a body draped over a Nuka mascot, but it appears to be a prop. We can't loot it. Well, which way do we go? South or north? Yeah! Whoops, looks like I got just a little bit too close to the track there. It's hard to see these cars coming in the darkness and the mist. All right, well, I'm just gonna have to risk it. Heading onto the tracks and running north. We keep running. Oh god, and we keep running. Oh no, and now a tunnel. I'm gonna get hit, I'm sure.
Really now? They just go in a big circle. If you couldn't see that coming, I'd... What you think?
We see that we're on the other side of that bottle tunnel that we first found in yesterday's video. This bottle tunnel is really close to the Nuka Racer's loading zone and to the entrance to the funhouse. This means the tunnel door opens up underneath King Cola's castle, somewhere around in here. While we're here, we can get rid of even more ghouls. Now we need to try and get back to where we were, so heading into the tunnel, we can cross our fingers and hope for the best. Oh, and I got nailed. Oh. Well, now we know what's north. This time let's head south, racing south down the tracks. We arrive on some sort of bridge. Oh, and a car's coming. Ooh, we dodged it. I apologize for the darkness. It's so hard to see, but with all of this radiation, I can't find a place to wait. So I can't wait until morning. We're just gonna have to suffer through the night. This bridge goes over a little bit of a moat. We find some steps leading down to the moat. Here we find a tarp, and underneath the tarp we find a small store of goods, a stim pack, a couple boxes of dirty water, and a yellow explosives crate. There's a skeleton lying face down in this wrecked boat. This water looks pretty clear, but soon as we dive in, we realize it's not. It must just be tinted with quantum, which is why it looks so blue, but it is highly radioactive. Swimming along, we see a footbridge above us, but then the moat ends at a big brick wall. So we gotta turn around. Back at the tracks, we could follow the tracks south, but that's likely going to get us killed. Instead, we see a small alley to the west. Racing across the tracks, we can squeeze through the alley to find a ghoul. And another one. This ghoul was standing right next to another consumer animatronic, wearing another unique Nuka World outfit. Lo and behold, we find ourselves right outside King Cola's castle. The footbridge we saw from the water below leads to the castle proper. But by taking the tracks, we skipped a bunch, and I wanted to see what we missed. So heading south, we find a ghoul next to a giddy-up buttercup merry-go-round. The merry-go-round doesn't work, but we do find a button here to activate it once we restore power to the park. Moving west, we see another Nuka-Cola tunnel that these cars are going through. And nearby is a little games courtyard. Here we see the Nuka Zapper race. And lying on a table with this game is a Thirst Zapper. We were first introduced to the Thirst Zapper upon first arriving at Nuka World. We used it to defeat Coulter. This radiation is really eating me up. After consuming even more of my precious Radaway and Radex, we see some ghouls shuffling up a nearby staircase. At the bottom, we see a dead ghoul, which means we've been here before. Sure enough, this was that tunnel we found near the beginning of this video. And there's the alleyway to the south that we took to enter the employee tunnels. At last, I know exactly where I am, and I haven't missed anything. We've explored every corner, which means all we have to do now is retrace our steps back. Before going across the bridge, however, we see a tower to the west. We remember from Fran's terminal that her boyfriend Evan moved into this tower after their fight. I wonder if he's still inside. I tried waiting on this bench for daybreak, but I couldn't wait with all this radiation, so sadly I've got to do this in the dark. Heading up the stairs, we see a ghoul sleeping by this wall. Could this be Evan? Heading inside the tower, we find an already dead ghoul here. There's a Jangles the Moon Monkey on the ground, some other toys and scrap, and the staircase is booby-trapped with a bathroom scale, though I didn't see what it was connected to. At the top of the stairs, we see a cooler on the ground next to a display case, some ruined mannequins and garbage down here. Up to the third floor, we find a skeleton splayed out, holding a lantern. Heading up to the fourth and final floor, there's no one here. No Evan, unless that ghoul on the ground floor was Evan. We see a mannequin peering out a window and, ooh, what's that?
Uh-huh. Got another one.
Our next hidden Cappy clue. If wearing our Cappy glasses, we can record the clue for Sierra Petrovita's quest. To the west, we see a metal box, a toolbox, and a first aid kit. Behind the first aid kit on the ground is a cap stash, and peering out the window with the mannequin, we see quite a drop. But that's it for the tower, so heading all the way back down, we can finally cross the bridge over the moat towards King Cola's castle. Whoa! Missile launcher! Duh! 2 missile launchers. Oh my gosh. All right, well, that took me by surprise. What a cheap shot. Well, now I know what to expect. The only way out of this with my lightly armored character is to leap over the side. Bingo. After both missiles hit, we can now swim back, cross the tracks, through the alley, and back across the bridge. We can now go through the door into the courtyard. After disarming a bottle cap mine at the top of these stairs, we find a ghoul behind us. And we see that the courtyard is swarming with ghouls. We can use Blitz to catch as many off guard as we can. There was only one I couldn't get. I tried to wait for the caution meter to go down, but he found me. Ooh, 2 of them, and one was a legendary. But on his corpse, we get a penetrating hunting rifle. This courtyard is pretty barren. None of the buildings have doors we can go through, and we don't find many containers. So heading up the stairs, we can turn east, where we do find a door into some sort of kitchen. In the kitchen, we find a cooler behind the counter and an advanced locked floor safe. Inside, we find missiles and ammunition. There's an ammo canister on the kitchen counter by the sink, and that's about it. Heading out, we see some bobbing rocket rides over in a corner. Families would let their kids play while taking their lunch on these picnic benches. But that's it. So to continue, we need to head west up the second set of stairs. This leads us around a long path towards the steps to the castle, where we find more ghouls. This leads to a final set of stairs, and upon blitzing in to kill this ghoul, we discover King Cola's castle. And with that, I'm out of time. We'll explore King Cola's castle and come face to face with Oswald the Outrageous in tomorrow's video. I publish a new Fallout video 6 days a week on a wide range of topics spanning all of the games. And if you want to make sure you don't miss episode 3 of this short series, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a brand new shirt in the shop, folks. Show no mercy. We have the painted portrait on the front and the text directly below. I have an alternative version that says Ad Victoriam. I also have an Ad Victoriam version without the portrait and a version of the portrait without the text. All these designs come in a wide array of colors and in a variety of sizes. I also have a bunch of other designs and other products for sale, so if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.